Hello, this is Dr. Stephen Cangiano. I am the president and co-founder of RDT.Media and Events with its online companions, humanity-upgrade.com and relationship-development.com. Today is an exciting story as well as extreme competence in the field of weight loss. And today it's my honor and pleasure to invite our guest and author, Leslie Chen. Now, we had a conversation ahead of time. I absolutely love her story. And it's not just about her story because she's helped almost 250 people dramatically transform their health and their weight. And she wants to discuss with us today permanent, sustainable, predictable weight loss. And that is up. However, Leslie, give us a potted version of your bio, and then I want to get into your story. Welcome. Great to have you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cangiano, for the warm introduction. Hi, everybody. My name is Leslie Chen, and I am an ultimate coach for sustainable weight loss. If you want to know a little bit about me, I came to this United States, at the age of 19-year-old. So when I first came, within 3 months, I gained 50 pounds, which was pretty incredible for, anybody, right? So I spent about 3 years trying to lose the weight. But what I found the most helpful was actually a summer vacation that is 1 year after my initial visit to the United States. When I came back home for a summer vacation, where I actually lost weight effortlessly. And eventually that evolved the idea about helping people to lose the weight sustainably and actually simply and also effortlessly. And now I've been helping, I've helped a lot of people, 239 people in total to transform their health. It's been wonderful here.
I want to kind of drill down on the story a little bit because I just want to kind of understand basically what it said is that you kind of got into a little bit of a Western diet, fast food trap, pizza, ice cream.
Right.
And, basically one thing we talk about is how the processed food industry is a big, big challenge, high calorie, low nutrition, addictive food. Was that
right.
part of the situation? And what did Tiger Lady say to you when you got home?
Well, that was definitely a part of the problem. And the even worse of the problem is that I didn't even know that was a problem. So when I came here, since I was in college, so we kind of had the buffet type of like eating setting, right, in the cafeteria. So with a ticket, with a card, you can enter the cafeteria and eat whatever you want. And in China, I was not as exposed to things like pizza and ice cream as much. So I was curious and also I was excited. And who doesn't like to eat buffet, right? So I was eating pretty much buffet 3 times a day. Plus, when I first came to this country, there's a lot of language barrier and also mindset and culture barrier as well. That served as a stress, which made me start stress eating and for a short period of time also binge eating. So that was kind of like a vicious cycle that which just repeated itself, and I couldn't see an end. I went back to China that summer, and my mother was picking me up in the airport. She did not even recognize me. I was this close, 2 feet close in front of her, and she didn't recognize me until I said, "Mom, this is me." And she didn't really say anything about my weight. She did not. Now I know that she tried to not react, but actually at the time, that just made me feel even incredible that she didn't say a word. Back when I was at home, I was so scared because in the United States, I tried a year to lose the weight in different type of diets for almost 1 year. What I was was still continuing back then was Atkins or ketogenics, right? However you put it.
Sure.
I would forbid myself to eat rice or any type of carbs. Only there was like 20-gram limit, right? But in China, everybody ate rice. Everybody ate buns, noodles, and stuff. So I was really frightened because I knew that if I started eating those things, my weight was gonna just dramatically come back. So I resisted weighing myself. I was so scared to even just to see the scale, you know? And my mom, who was a tiger lady, because she has been very strict for me and with me since through my entire upbringing, it made it so even more surprising to me that she didn't say a word about my, weight. But what she did was she just kept on feeding me whatever she had fed me before I went to the United States, which included noodle, included rice, included different types of big variety of delicious dishes. And like I said, I was really frightened, but I resisted thinking about weight because I was really stressed out about it. But about 1 month later, I started really realizing some differences on my body. I was putting on the pants, which I wore when I came back to China. And I realized that, no, it didn't feel the same because now it felt a lot looser, it felt a lot bigger. So I started getting curious and stood on a scale and realized that, holy crap, I was like 14 pounds lighter.
Wow.
What did happen? Right? That was my major question. I didn't really want to think too much into it back then. I thought it might be a fluke or something. But I just kept on living that way for another month. And I realized that I was consistently losing weight more and more and more. Then I came back to the United States and I realized there's something that I got in my life in China over those 2 months. There must be something in it which had made a difference because I didn't have to diet. Right. So I just carried on whatever I did in China in terms of my eating, like what type of food, how I ate. I couldn't get something that's completely the same with what I ate in China, but I tried to, in terms of the portion size, in terms of the way that I did the cooking, etc. I tried to mimic something like that. Even when I was eating in a student cafeteria with a lot of cooking restrictions, they had a microwave there. I tried to, pick up the food, which was like what I used to have in China and just prepare it in a very fresh way. So eventually I started, gradually and consistently losing all the weight. And by the time a year passed, I lost about, I think the majority of weight, almost 50 pounds.
Wow.
So that was my story. Yeah.
Now, I want to hover on that a little bit.
Sure.
First of all, your mother sounds like an amazing woman because, she didn't, she made it safe for you to come home, didn't get on your case and lose the weight, and created the same environment where you were a thin, adult when you were 18 and 19 before you left. Yeah. So if you were going to narrow it down, and I have my opinion, but you experienced it, what do you think was the critical problem or the critical challenge? Because this is not an uncommon story. There's a lot of people who come from other countries, come to the United States and put on the 50 states doesn't mean you have to put on 50 pounds. You know what I'm saying? So what do you think, because now you're an expert, what do you think was the critical factor and what did you do to make the shift? And then I want to talk about how you help your clients.
There are multiple layers of it, actually.
Please.
So since I've helped so many people lose the weight, and I kind of see this common trend among all of them, right? So one of the biggest patterns that I've noticed is that people who try to lose weight, they try kind of different diets, right? However, what they're doing, ironically, is that they're creating memories, which is everything but what they want to create, which reinforces identity, which is 100% not only different, but actually on the opposite direction of who they wanted to be. I'll give you an example. As a dieter, I used to wake up every morning, weigh myself. Oh gosh, I got like 1 pound up, right? And I'll be very nervous for the day. I'll be counting calories all the time, and I'll be avoiding all the carbohydrates and even fast for a few hours. Well, think about it. Who does that? If you want to be naturally, holistically lean, would you do that? Do you find a naturally healthy and holistic person actually do that? No.
No.
You are doing everything that a dieter is going to do. So at the end of the day, you become a very good dieter because you know what everything a dieter has to do. However, to become permanently and sustainably free and healthy, you have to be totally different. You cannot be going to, the gathering and facing a plate of steak and feel scared, right? You just have to be able to instinctively know how to actually when to stop eating, how to enjoy food.
Okay.
So
Good.
I would say that overall speaking, yeah.
Uh-huh. So let me
That's
hover on
number
that.
one. Yeah.
Let me
Sure.
let me hover on that because I want to make sure that people are getting your point because it's very important.
Right.
I think what you're saying is that people get onto these diets and many diets and the statistics on diets are abysmal, that a lot of times people take on this almost this identity as a dieter, and that identity kind of locks them into always being on a diet. Is that accurate?
Exactly. It's not just about identity, because when you kind of assume one identity, your behavior, your thinking, your feelings, your emotions, and how your brain is wired, and what you think, and how do you talk to yourself, everything kind of automatically aligns with that identity.
Got it.
Right? You practice counting calories. You practice banning carbohydrates. You practice fasting. Your body might be good at it then. Your mentality might be, pretty situated and comfortable with that. But eventually, you never become really and sustainably lean for real. That's the problem. That's why people have been trying this for decades. But still, we have the statistics from the New York Times that over 90% of those people who lost weight through diets, any form of diets, they start picking up those weight within just a few months at max. Yes. And most of the time you gain more.
And you're absolutely right. The statistics on like for instance, tenure is virtually unheard of. But many people go on a diet and 6 to 12 months later have gained all the way back and more.
Yep.
So how do you, all right, so you've identified a critical piece to this whole puzzle. How do you help people, I don't know what you call it, but transform their identity? Yeah. Or are you talking about making it automatically eat healthy? Tell us how you make that shift.
Well, it's a very long story, but I can jump to the key points. I want to start from my story, because that's going to give people pretty much a miniature view about how change actually starts. Okay. So remember, I went back to China and I was very nervous because I was no longer dieting, right? There were two things that actually happened at the same time, which made things very easy for me. First, I was in an entirely different environment. And when I say environment, I'm not saying that the food is different. No, it's actually not much about food if you think about the identity thing, which I want to explain later, but let me just finish the story here. So one thing is that the environment is different. I was facing my mom, my family, right? And also my friends. So all of a sudden, my kind of identity unconsciously and subconsciously jumped back into this, Chinese girl in China, which I've assumed for like 18 years, versus this international student who is fat in the United States, who is kind of stressed. But in China, because there's a different identity associated to this new environment, it was easier for me, right? The next thing was pleasure. Because in China, when my mom cooked for me, even though I was eating food of, all types, I was even eating carbohydrates, I was eating chocolate as well, I was having pleasure, I was having fun. And that's something that I could stick to for life. Now, going back to those diets, the other reason why it never enable people to succeed is because you have to fight yourself all the time. You have to fight not only your body, your biology, because we're not really trained to suppress those food types from the beginning, right? But also I have to fight my mind all the time. So that gives me a lot of stress. But in China, since all of these things, they're pretty pleasurable, they're pretty delicious, and I loved it. So it made it very easy for me. I felt satisfied to begin with, right? So now back to how people can actually start initiating sustainable transformation. Yeah, go
Let me
ahead.
cover on one point. So
Sure.
I just want to be super clear.
Yeah.
So in the States, in the cafeteria, you were stressed, looking at the scale, etc. You were fighting yourself, probably using willpower, which we know doesn't work.
Yep.
And so are you telling me that you feel like the stress was part of the problem?
The stress is definitely a problem. The stress is definitely a problem, like the problem 100%. And it works against you on multi levels. First of all, what you resist persists. That's pretty much like a natural law, right? So if I'm telling myself, no, I can't eat that chocolate, and just because that chocolate is in my awareness, what I focus on is where my energy is, right? So I'll keep thinking about chocolate all the time. When I was in China, since I pretty much gave up in the first 1 month, thinking that I would gain weight whatsoever. So I kind of quit that thinking. That's how I got the freedom. And that's how I stopped thinking about it.
Love it. Love it. Yes. That's important. That's so important. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that's that one way stress is going to work against you, right? It's that mentality wise. Now, the other thing is that when you are stressed, your body kind of responds to that in different ways as well. You're stressed, your hormone changes, right? And that's how a lot of people get the stress eating problem, is because internally they have the chemical triggers or biological triggers that is making them want sweet, for example. It's not just sweet, but sweet is kind of the one of the major addiction there. But at the same time, if you got chronic stress over food, what happens is that stress induces something called chronic inflammation. And when you're having chronic inflammation, there are two consequences. One is that two major consequences. One is that this inflammation alone is going to attract and retain fat. We have numerous medical studies proving that. And what does that mean is that you can still work on your diet really hard, exert your willpower, but because your body is chronically inflamed, what it does is that it pretty much attracts fat on its own. So in this case, situation, your body is working against you, right? So it defeats all the efforts that you do, which makes the battle so difficult for you. Now, on the next, the other layer how it works is that because you're chronically inflamed, what happens is that it triggers even more stress, because now your body kind of loses the hormonal balance and everything. And we also have numerous medical studies showing that chronic inflammation is at the core of almost all chronic diseases.
Absolutely.
About obesity, we talk about diabetes and all these things. So that's why, just because you have the stress is going to induce the chronic inflammation, which is in turn going to induce more stress, both mentally and biologically and physically. And then you have this fat attracting fat kind of thing working at the same time, which makes it 100 times harder,
Yes, absolutely. And so that it's what you're saying is, and I totally agree, is it becomes a downward spiral. And okay, good. So that whole stress piece, and stress also shuts down your internal organs, shuts down your detox. It's just a horror show.
Yeah.
And even mentally, it makes it more difficult to think properly with the
Right.
stress.
Right.
Then I stopped you and I apologize, but now
That's
you
okay.
talked about how do you make the transformation? I think let's
Yeah.
go there now.
It's important that you keep these two points in mind, right? First of all, I have to create this environment where, like, not just external environment, also in internal environment. We were just talking about stress, right? Where you can do things smoothly. The other thing is that you can't create a situation for yourself where you can have no fun. So what we do based on that, here's I'm going to give you a step-by-step approach, like recount of how I do it. Okay. So
I
when
might
somebody
ask
comes to me, sure.
if I have a question, I might ask to hover on one step to make sure everybody's clear on it. But yeah, but go. Yeah, no, that's
Sure.
great.
So when somebody come to me saying, now, Leslie, I need your help. I've been trying to lose weight for like 10 years. It's not working. I have cravings. I overeat all the time. What I do first and foremost is to help them kind of clean the body. Because what's happening is that now you have been trying this diet for all these years. So we just talked about chronic inflammation, right? Actually, most of the people who are overweight will have this problem. So what happens is that I'm going to give you this plan. And when I say plan, it's twofold. One is a mental plan, pretty much a mindset routine. The other is a food routine, okay, to help you get rid of the inflammation. And that also draws back to a lot of experience that I had in China with food. Because a lot of time people in China and most of the East Asian countries, if you look at that diet, a lot of the natural food they eat is actually anti-inflammatory. Okay, so we clean your body first. And also we clean the internal environment of it to help you get rid of all the stress that you've been chronically suffering from, which I'm going to dig into later. I'm just making a note here, okay?
Good. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then the next thing we do is to help you reactivate what we call the natural instinct. And let me explain the ideas. Now your body is no longer working against you because now you're no longer experiencing those hormonal triggers or chemical triggers that push you to eat those chocolate, right? Because the inflammation is gone, because now your body is now clean. Now, without body being the roadblock for you, what we do is to make sure that you gain the power to instinctively know how much to eat and when to stop without having to think about it. You gain the power to naturally mute a lot of those cravings without having to exert willpower. And why I said these are instincts is because, think about it, we were not born to this world with a lot of those issues, right? Nobody was born to this world being an overeater. I have a 6-month-old right now. And when I feed her, she just knows to stop eating when she is full. We gain this problem of chronic overeating and cravings and food obsession because of those last 5 years, the last 10 years of constant eating and thinking about it and using, whatever diets as a treatment, which did not work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what we do here is that we have to create new memories about food, about eating, which overwrites the old memories that we gain from those processes, which includes getting clear about what your natural appetite is and reactivate that. And that is going to take a series of reconditioning. It's not just physical, it's also mental as well. Okay. So go ahead.
So step one, clean. It's kind of a mental detox, let's call it, and a physical detox. And what that does is that gets helps to get most of the inflammation out of the body. And
Right.
is that what reactivates and reset these instincts, or is the instincts something that you do when you are in your coaching?
It's both.
Oh,
When you
okay.
clear the obstacles on the way in your body and in your mind, what happens is that you will find instantaneously some of the old addictions gone. Okay. And that's what I mean by now your body is no longer working against you by sending you those wrong signals, which pushes you to overeat or fall for a certain craving, right? But that's not the end of it, because eventually you still, like, even though your body is clean now, you're not receiving those signals. You still don't know how to eat. Right. You still don't know when to stop. And eventually you want to, when I say sustainable weight loss, we're talking about experience where you go to a situation, doesn't matter if it's a party or friend dinner or a family reunion, and you sit in front of a plate of food, you eat to your satisfaction, and you stop naturally without even having to think about it.
Right.
Right? And those are unconscious moves. And how do you recreate those unconscious awareness? Is by finding or rediscovering what the balance, we call it satiety, what my satiety level really is, which you've forgotten for years because you've been focusing on those diets and relying on numbers, right? We've been counting calories and we've been counting carbs, and we use those as pretty much benchmark to determine if we should stop eating. So we actually lost the ability to, not lost, but I would say put those ability into dormant mode. But we did that so that now our body don't know how to listen to those signals. So there needs a period, a process that helps you get back to that instinct by self-exploring. We have a dedicated process for you to recondition your appetite, your satiety. And then you start, that's not the end of it, because think about it, the old memories have become the established habits, right? Which is overeating. And in order to actually get rid of that, you need to use the new balance and also the new behavior, which is triggered by the new balance, to actually overwrite that memory. So that now you're creating new memory, which is now associated to the new identity. And that's how the old memory and old behavior is going to just naturally dissolve. And that goes back to previously what we talked about, this new identity game, right? Mm-hmm. It's not a situation where you sit in front of the mirror and trying to manage, conjuring up a new identity. Actually going hand in hand. You can't live in a new identity without your reality being aligned to that. And now by creating the new memory, new experience with food, you're naturally creating this new identity and align to that in every way. So that's going to be the next step. Let me know if you have any questions regarding it. I know I'm going really fast.
No, this is great. No, believe me, as you can tell, I'll stop you because you're being very clear. If there's anything just to emphasize, I will. But yeah, please keep going.
Sure. So that's like instincts, right? Now that's like the first layer of it. Second layer is about how you actually emotionally, consciously react to food, react to cravings. And believe me, when you have cleaned your body, a lot of those cravings, I would say that probably, it's hard to quantify, but just to give you more of the crisp and clear idea, probably half of those cravings which you've been experiencing is just automatically gone. Okay. So right now, you need to, same way as we have been working on to create a new appetite, satiety, you need to create a new experience in terms of your natural response towards food. And that also takes a series of focused reconditioning. It's not just about tuning your body in, it's also about tuning your mind in, because emotion is a big part of it.
Sure.
right? Again, identity. So that's about instincts. Now, if we look back, this is what we have. We now have a body that is no longer working against us. At least it's neutral now. And actually, if you keep doing this, it's actually going to turn working for you, to your favor. And now we have resurrected the natural instincts that make us a healthy person. And I want to clarify something that is very important here. A lot of us who are overweight have this natural thinking that, you know, somehow I'm supposed to be like that. It's one limiting belief or the other. Maybe you think that, oh, my family has been like this. It's genetics. Or I've been this for the past 20 years, so there's no way for me to turn things around, right? So there are many different reasons why you might think that this is going to be my reality for the rest of my life. However, when one of the biggest obstacles when I coach people is actually that they don't accept a new reality. It's not that they don't want to, it's just that they can't see themselves being there. That's a problem. Right. And that's the number one problem we're going to have to address, because, you know, if you can't see yourself be there, you can't be there. Right. Now, you also now have this instincts that is now pretty much like a healthy person, a naturally healthy person's instincts, which you actually born with. Sure. Right? Which goes back to what I just said. You're born to be naturally healthy and lean. Right? Not like you're supposed to be like this for the rest of your life. So, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
By now, you also should have a routine naturally. Because now your awareness towards food change, your feelings, emotions, and behaviors towards food change. Your routine has naturally changed. You don't have to enforce it. Okay, now if we look back, what do we have now? A body that works for you. Instincts that is for a naturally lean and healthy person. And also a routine. Like I said at the beginning, the identity just naturally shifts and everything just get aligned to it automatically. And it's not about a willpower game to begin with. And as long as you can keep having those routines, keep reinforcing those natural instincts, which is supposed to be effortless because you're born with them. You just now work them up. Unless you do something really dramatic, like eating burger or junk food, continuously for 30 days, they're not going to go away. So that's how you're going to get permanent and sustainable results. Your body is now just going to keep it as it is. Just like the old programming, which you've got through constant eating and constant overeating and dieting. Now you kind of reward your body and transform it into a new program with new accessories, talking about the routine, right?
Sure.
That just keeps things as it is going forward.
All right, let me see if I can distill this down just to make sure that we got it, because this is really important. This is a great thing. And then I want to kind of wrap things up around the right, because you call it the rice, and I want to understand that. But anyway, so clean the body and the mind, get rid of the inflammation. 50% of the cravings just naturally go away, which I agree with.
50%.
At least. So
50%. We have clients. Yeah, go ahead.
It could be 80, or, I mean, what's the most you've seen? Is all of them gone away sometimes, or?
No, it's not going to be all of them. But I've seen people who are like, oh gosh, my favorite go-to comfort food was chocolate, and I was not thinking about it for the whole week.
Oh,
and they were in like third week of the program. It's not done yet, because the thing is that we're talking about reprogramming how you think about food, how you think about yourself, how you naturally react to it, right? So without those new memories, the new experience, reinforced enough to the level that those are just going to be your instincts, it's very easy for the old thing to just surge back. and reclaim its power and dominance in your life. So that's why when we're talking about, people say that you have to create habits, and when in order to create a habit, you have to do things repetitively. That's true. So just having this a one-time success is not going to get you, too far away. You have to be able to do it consistently so that this becomes an integrative new, I don't want to say regimen because it kind of, indicate the concept of that dieting, but this new habit, this new natural lifestyle, so that everything is comfort. Yeah.
So that's good. So detox, mental, emotional, reactivate the instinctual, healthy pathways.
Right.
You want this to be sustainable.
Yeah.
And you want to create satiety, new memories, new identities that promote. And the other theme that a lot of people don't talk about in a diet is you want it to be fun. It can't be this constant looking at counting every calorie, looking at the scale, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, all right. The next thing is you talk about rice, lean, tell us, to bring this in for landing, what do you have in terms of diet tips or eating? Because you mentioned that you were on the keto diet. That really didn't work for you personally. Then you went back to China, and there's a lot of carbs in the diet, and you were concerned at first, but then you lost a lot of weight. Tell us
14 pounds in the first month. Yeah,
it's amazing.
What was the question? Sorry, I missed you.
So tell us, so 14 pounds in the first month, and you went from a keto diet to carb. What are your diet recommendations?
It's gonna be pretty counterintuitive, and you might feel a little nervous about that idea. Is whatever you want to eat. That's the main thing, because we talked about it, right? The moment you tell yourself that I can't eat this, you are still holding that in your awareness strongly. And because of that, you're just gonna sustain this, what we call a dieter's life, a dieter's mentality and identity. And that will lead you to go astray, and you're just going to fail and fail and fail. The reason why I say it might feel like nerve-wracking is because a lot of people, we are programmed to be afraid of food, right? So you have to strike a balance. You have to think about what is the best thing I can do, right? For instance, like I want to eat pizza today. I had a pizza for lunch, right? A lot of the dieters will be like, oh gosh, you can't do it, right? Because that's gonna make you gain weight. You just have to learn to make peace at it, right? And then you know that, because I had a pretty heavy lunch, probably for dinner I'm just gonna go lighter. So it's pretty much like what I want people to pick up during this process is to have an easygoing mindset instead of being desperate and being obsessive, being obsessed towards food. Okay, so that's number one, because when you're too stressed out, you can't go far away. This is a long run game, right? Which means that pleasure and fun and ease has to be a part of it. Agreed. So that's number one. Now, number two is that I want people to, instead of focusing on the 20%, I want them to focus on the 80% instead. I'll explain what I mean by that. Now, I've run into a lot of clients who tell me, well, I've had a lot of back and forth. I wanted to eat healthy, but then one day I was at a friend's place and we had pizza, and the mindset just shut down, and I started saying that screw it to myself, and I started binge eating for the next day. That happens to a lot of people. Well, think about this, right? It's not about what you can eat or cannot eat. It's about setting a proper boundary. And one thing I ask my clients to do is to identify a boundary for themselves in terms of how many days, in terms of percentage, how many days during a year can I let things go out of control a little bit and still be fine? And think about, we have all the occasions starting from vacations, holiday dinners, and movie nights, etc. Right? So assuming if you set the boundary to be 20% in a year, which is 365 days, you got 70 days where you can just let things kind of go without having that much control, right? Yeah. That's a long time if you think about it.
It is. Yeah, that
right?
is. Mm-hmm.
And the trick here is that if you have set the boundary for yourself, even the out of control piece in your life is now planned for. So that will enable you to do one thing, which is that when you feel like you have fallen off the wagon, you realize that it's actually budgeted. It's actually planned for. So you're not going to have this mental guilt that is going to make things go downward just from here, right?
Right.
The other thing is that people, because they're so easily triggered and discouraged by what they've done wrong, and they kind of lose the sight of the truth, which is that majority of your outcome is going to be dependent on 80% of the time how you've done it. And people fall for, let's say, self-sabotage because they kind of overate at a friend's dinner or family union, etc. And these, if you set the boundary, you will know this is 20% of it. If you look at the 80% of the time where you did well, you'll realize that you have a completely different feeling about it, right? So if you can focus on the 80%, that's where your outcome is going to come out, not the 20%. So that's number 2. Okay. Now, I also have one last piece for people, is that a lot of time people will tell me that I don't have self-control. I wanted to say that this is not really a game of self-control, because when you say the word control, you automatically apply the feeling of willpower, of going against yourself. No, it's not. It's about self-mastery. Like I said, those cravings, if you have managed yourself well, those cravings are not going to, a lot of those cravings are not going to come up to begin with. So there's nothing to control. There's nothing to fight against. So the question now is, how do you actually establish this lifestyle and this routine and this mentality where you don't have to struggle so much? And when we're talking about sustainable long-run weight loss, real weight loss, that's the key. And a part of that lies in forgetting that you have to lose the weight, forgetting unlearning those diets. Any questions?
No, that's good. So I like to make sure I have all the points. I love your 80-20 rule, because it's sustainable.
It doesn't have to be 80-20. Somebody will say it's 30-70 is fine. I like to meet people where they are. Sometimes people are not ready for being 80-20. And if they want to be 30-70, they're still a lot better than what they used to be, which is 70-30.
Right. No, that's great.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's not a battle, because for it to be sustainable, self-control doesn't work. It's self-mastery. And I think if I could boil it down, is you want to turn the relationship with food into a fun, enjoyable, sustainable one.
It has to be.
As I think, and the other thing I really liked is that, there's a very popular diet plan out there now, and they talk about food as an addiction. And that you have to, it's almost like you go on AA or Smokers Anonymous for food. Yeah. And that to me is absolute. Look, you can live without cigarettes, you can live without alcohol, you can't live without food. You have to have a sustainable relationship with food. Absolutely. And I think, and I have to say, I love these points you made are absolutely phenomenal.
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, let's and yeah. So it's always great to meet in this situation because we knew you were a thought leader from your content and your articles, and you've had thousands of reads on the site, which is great. We really appreciate that. But it's obvious your expertise comes through here as well. So let's bring this in for a landing. Is there anything, like, obviously we'll have your information, how people can get in touch with you. Is there anything you want to leave people with? Because you've said a lot, so you don't need to say anything else, but is there anything you want to leave people with?
I want people to start thinking about a different reality where it is easy to lose the weight instead of being difficult. Because really, it doesn't have to be difficult. The whole journey can be very smooth if you learned where your balance are, which I cannot answer for you, but I'm happy to inspire you to find it.
Beautiful. And if it is difficult, I think what you've said is it may not work for you long term. And so you as a coach want to make it easy and really reestablish that relationship.
It can really be easy if you stop pushing yourself. And most of the time we'll be messing with ourselves. It's not just about weight loss. Think about it, right? We're thinking about building a channel, building a magazine, and attract people to come here. Or you're in a fundraising business where you're trying to raise funds, etc. So nothing really is going to be easy for you if you have to keep fighting yourself. Fighting the idea that I can be successful, fighting the idea that I'm born to be thin, I'm born to be healthy, I'm born with those instincts that will prevent me from not overeating or falling for cravings one after another. So I want people to start thinking about it, because I know that for some people it can be really difficult. They've been overweight for most of their life. But hey, what if it's just the ways that you've been doing it, talking about those diets, has been set you up for failure to begin with? What about you just being in the Western world or in the United States where you're just exposed to all of those diet information? But if you look at the rest of the world, right? If you look at East Asia, like China, Korea, Japan, being thin is just natural to people, most people, right? So if you feel like you've been stuck, you've been trapped, and you're going to be destined to look like this or be on an unhealthy body for the rest of your life, look at the other parts of the world. How can people be easily thin and holistically healthy without having to do anything? And if you go to China, a lot of those people, over there, don't even know about calories. They're not counting. Right. So your reality of being overweight for majority of your life is fact, but that is also a piece of fact, important piece of fact. And if you could not get yourself around into knowing and believing that you can be thin naturally, just look at that. It should not be hard work. You're supposed to be thin to begin with, and you were to begin with. It's just that you have been misled by diets after another. I mean, I call it is like Western bullshit. Forgive my language, but that's really fine. Misled.
I agree. And what you've done is you've really got this intersection between how do you get the mindset, transform your identity, transform your relationship with food, which I think, and make it fun, which I think are critical success factors. Well, Leslie, I really want to thank you earnestly for being here, for spending your time with us. Okay, this is Dr. Stephen Cangiano. Thanks, Leslie. Relationship-development.com, humanity-upgrade.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you.